7 p.m., or actually 7:02 p.m., and I am reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, September 13th, 2021. Our next Board of Education meeting will be held on September 27th, 2021. Jeannie, will you call the roll?
Ms. Grover.
Present.
Ms. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Jane. Mr. Karubis.
Here.
Mr. Rising.
Here.
Ms. Deming. Ms. Fosdick.
Here.
We have a quorum. Ms. Grover, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have, next agenda item is a student representative report by Saad Qureshi from Mattia Valley High School. Qureshi. Over here.
Take the podium.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Good evening. My name is Saad Qureshi, and I'm the class of 2023 Executive Board Representative for MV Student Government. I'm super excited to be with you all here tonight. Mattia has had successful readiness days to get our Mustangs ready for the school year. Thank you to all the teachers and volunteers that helped us have an amazing kickstart to the school year. Transfer and freshman orientations went off without a hitch. The new students were comfortably able to adjust to a new school. SEL habit lessons for the first 3 days went extremely well. SEL focus continues in the future. Our MCs are bringing spirit back to MV. Very proud of our MCs and their ideas of supporting others. Our talented Mustangs have been back and more eager to get back into the art studio. Our Mustangs have been involved with the department-wide collaboration art installation where students created mindful doodles and Zentangle patterns inspired by the person's identity. These works of art have been displayed in the commons of our school, and keep up the awesome work, Mustangs. The Marching Mustangs have been quite busy since the start of the school year, starting with the combined drum lines from Mattia, Niqua, and Wabanzi. The Valleys were featured in Dr. Talley's opening message to the district personnel. The Marching Mustangs marched in the last fling parade in downtown Naperville, and Mattia hosted the District 204 Marching Band Festival on September 11th. Students will be traveling to NIU for Band Day on September 25th to play with the Marching Huskies in their halftime show featuring music of the Blue Brothers. This year, the band has prepared a show for home football games called Resilience, featuring music from Green Day, The Greatest Showman, and hits by the Who. Good luck to our Marching Mustangs. Mattia Valley's football team took its first home win in over 7 years this past weekend against East Belleville with a score of 15-14. Great job, Mustangs. Mattia Valley's swim team won the Wabanzi relays at Wabanzi this past weekend with a high score of 716 points. It would not have been possible without Amanda Schmidt and Allie Leslie taking first place. Keep up the good work. The men's golf team has had a great season so far. The boys so far have a 5-0 winning record this season against all other schools and closed out the McGonigal Invitational with a score of 316 points. The women's varsity volleyball team has won tournament after tournament since the start of the school year. Stellar job, Mustangs. Finally, Mattia participated in the National Day of Service and Remembrance for September 11th. This included remembering the events of 2001 as well as committing to service over the weekend. Students constructed an American flag replica by posting their I will commitments on red, white, and blue Post-it notes and displaying them all over the LMC. That's all I have for the September board report. Thanks, everyone. And until next time, go Mustangs.
Hey, Saeed, two things. First of all, you look marvelous. And second thing is, way to lead the students out on the field after the home win. You were the one carrying the flag. You're a great student leader. Congratulations.
All right. It's now time for public comment. 60 minutes is allowed for public comment.
Mike's not.
There it is. Start again. It's now time for public comment. 60 minutes is allowed for public comment, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. Our first speaker is Ping Li. Over here, yeah. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Ping Li. I'm from the Mission Oak subdivision, the Welch boundary, elementary school boundary. Today, I'm not talking about something related to your agenda, but it's something that the issue that's concerns from our community. Over the last a few days, the community is concerned about the reboundary of the Welch directly suggested by the committee, the option 3 and option 1. I have we have a group, Facebook group that have a lot of comments, have around 400 people in that discussion group. Today there's very good comments about this redrawing the boundary. This person called Rahul. He said one of the things we have been discussing is the proximity of Welch to Nequa High School. So I took a list of all elementary schools in District 204 and mapped their distance to Nequa. Distance from each elementary school to Nequa has been calculated and listed on the Google map. Not surprisingly, Welch is the closest one to Nequa. This is within 1 mile. It's to be exact, it's 0.71 miles. In fact, Welch is the only elementary school less than a mile from Nequa. The consulting firm helping District 204 in rezoning have listed that they are expert in geospatial mapping, which is all the more surprisingly that they have been thinking why they moving Welch out of the Nequa High School. So this shows the mapping is visually illustrate that Welch Elementary School is the closest one to Nequa High School, but by their suggestion, it's going to be moved out of Nequa. So that's the very concerned our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ashvin Shandhak. Shandhak. Is Ashvin here? No? Okay. All right, the next speaker is Jim Kuhn.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, good evening, Dr. Talley and school board members of District 204. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jim Keel. I'm a retired U.S. Navy commander who spent more than 20 years protecting our freedoms and defending the Constitution of the United States. More importantly, I'm a proud father of 3 wonderful kids that I've entrusted in your care. The current district COVID-19 policy regarding quarantining unvaccinated students is discriminatory, illogical, and is perceived as harassment, pressuring students to get injected with a non-fully approved drug in order to fit in, be accepted, and treated the same as their peers. Additionally, the current accommodations afforded to the quarantine students are insufficient and fall far short of providing a free and appropriate public education. Per the district's policy, if a vaccinated student is in close contact with a COVID-positive person, it has 0 impact on their education. They are allowed to continue in-person learning, attend extracurricular activities, and even travel to other schools to compete in sports. The only requirement is for them to be monitored for symptoms. However, if the same situation happens to an unvaccinated student, they are immediately sent home and forced to quarantine for 14 days, no questions asked. It doesn't even matter if the child had previously had COVID and recovered in his natural immunity. That is, of course, unless the positive test was within the last 90 days. The message being sent home to the unvaccinated students is loud and clear. Either inject an emergency use authorized drug into your child or have them be treated differently. I understand the district is considering or has just begun to consider a test-to-stay program, which may reduce the length of quarantine. I like the looks of it. Well, my question is, will this be mandated only for unvaccinated students? If that's the case, why do these policies and programs only apply to unvaccinated students? Is it because they are the only ones that can catch and transmit the disease? Or is that just the perception? According to the CDC, fully vaccinated people can and still do contract and transmit the virus. Let's open the discussion about keeping sick kids home and make sure that healthy kids are able to attend in-person learning regardless of their vaccination status. Why do healthy kids have to stay home and suffer? The science simply does not support only the unvaccinated persons are spreading COVID-19. If you're sick, it makes sense. Stay home. If your child arrives at school sick, he or she should be sent home. If your child may have been exposed, perhaps a simple email to the student's family asking them to monitor for symptoms more closely is a more palatable option, regardless of their vaccination
Ms. Donahue,
status.
speaker's time has ended.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Robert Shantz.
Good evening, Dr. Talley, School Board for 204. I'm Robert Schanz. I have 4 kids in the district, and one of them attends the STEM school currently. And unfortunately, despite parents' fight, the closure was voted on by the other districts involved and the AU president, despite Dr. Talley offering an alternative for 2 more years that was just plainly ignored. It wasn't even discussed, which was disgusting, no pun intended. While this was happening, a lot of parents, we were raising Freedom of Information Act requests. The first one was a broad one for emails between the 4 superintendents and the Aurora University president, and that was denied due to undue. One thing that it did reveal was that the closure was basically decided on in November, and the whole school board should be concerned about that because you were not involved in that decision, and then just informed and basically gaslighted into your decisions too. And that should be really outraging to you. Another thing that it revealed was a lot of lies that were told to parents. Like in January, we received an email. Rest assured, there's not going to be any closure, yet it was already decided. One sad thing was Dr. Talley that all the superintendents seem to be the pawns of the Aurora University president, because she, while claiming not like to be in the standing back and watching what the school districts want to do, every time something went not into the closure direction, she like stepped in, and all the emails show it. She was like, keep your people in line, when like one board was not voting or going into and in for favor to closing the school. And everybody played along. It was really terrible to read all these emails. We filed a complaint with the Attorney General, and they came back with over 30 violations of the Open Meetings Act. And one of them here, and it's really sad, is that you, Dr. Talley, sent to the other members that you were going to discuss this in executive session, so that we parents don't find out if we attend those meetings. And I hope you, Mr. Karubas, as an attorney,
Ms. Donahue, speaker's time has ended.
you're strongly
Thank you
opposed to
very
that kind of
much.
stuff.
Thank you. Next speaker is Xiaoming Kui.
Good evening, School District 204 board member, and Dr. Talley. So I'm the Naperville resident for past 23 years. I live in the Mission Oaks subdivision, and both my kids go to Welch, and then later they go to the Nigua. So, but recently we just found out the school district will try to redraw the school boundary. So there's a couple concerns after I carefully study the plan. The first thing is I found out currently they go to the option 3, concept 3. And then I found out in that concept 3, basically is for the Route 59, it's a very busy street. I live in this area for past 23 years. I think everybody living in this area know Route 59 is very busy, and the car driving on that is very high speed there. So the people, it's west of Route 59 in this concept 3, the new subdivision. I think they need to cross the Route 59 from the west to east. And then the plan will push us, the Mission Oaks, from the east side and drive across to the Route 59, from the east to the west. So that is already very crazy busy, like a road, Route 59 every morning. And then this new boundary drawing will introducing more extra traffic challenge to everybody living in this area. And the second thing is, I don't know, the professional, they ask this consulting company. I think that they should study that traffic pattern. Another thing is this, when our kids grown up, become a teenager, they'll be like the first driver. And then think about this, my kids driving from our home, go to the Nigua Valley. I just need to drive in the local road, Skyline. So that road is very safe. Speed limit is 25 miles. But then you ask the kids, the new driver, and then in the future, they have to driving on Route 59 and cross it. So I don't know, if anything happen to one kid, I don't know, this new school boundary committee, are they think about that? So this is like a safety for every a teenager driver and to every parent. And for the impact will be like a long last for every family when they have something happen. So I think the school district should pay more attention on that new boundary, especially when you try to moving the subdivision from across the Route 59. So I think 10 years ago, there's one thing happened to that. So I think that the Route 59 is a common sense. So we try to avoid cross that, introducing more traffic challenge.
Ms. Donahue, speaker's time has ended.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Simon Yuan.
Good evening, dear board members, dear Dr. Talley. My name is Simon Yan. I'm a Naples resident for over 20 years. I have 5 kids. 3 of them all graduated from Welsh Elementary School and Scotland Middle School. I have twin sons right now at 7th grade at Scotland Middle School. They graduated from Welsh as well. I want to bring to the board concern for the recent boundary committees. Echo a few of our neighbors in the Mission Oaks that the concern for the boundary, different concepts. I want to say, as a parent, I want to put the idea that we need to consider safety and the mental health of the kids. My 2 sons, my twins, when they heard the idea, one of the idea actually separate the Welsh from north of 87, send them far away to Owen, which is 4 or 5 miles away. That's concept 3, and concept 1 that's concept 1, break the Welsh, into 2 sections. And concept 3, the other separations, because in concept 3, then the Welsh will, because they have friends at the current Scotland Middle School, so they say, oh, because the neighbors in Stillwater will be separated. So they at 13 years old, right now, they're teenagers, they do not listen to the parents as much. They care about their friends, where they stay together at high school. So this causing a lot of anxiety among the kids as well. They are very, very concerned. They're young, so I see even elementary school kids putting boards trying to say, keep the Welsh together, go to Niqua. So I have to say, I understand the board members or the consultants that try to put the best proposal for the school district, but do consider the students' mental health, how there should be, proximity or stay together, the friendship they build up, should try to put that into consideration. I understand their budget concern, the other concern, but this is also important. It should be the number one of the important factors in the boundary decision. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sam Lee.
Dr. Talley, board members, thank you for this time to speak to you. I wanted to address the hottest topic on the buses today, and that was the boundary lines. So what I'd really like to do is humbly ask the board to consider 3 things. One is the timing of this proposal. We are 4 weeks into a new school year, post-pandemic, being completely out, and let me correct myself, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. The future is rather uncertain, and is now the best time, given all that our children have gone through for the last year, the appropriate time to really introduce something as disruptive and one that causes a tremendous amount of anxiety. 2, should we consider other options? I've only seen options 1 and 3, or concepts 1 and 3, and they literally look like the same thing, slightly different flavor, given the track record of the consultant stating that they have a 97% rate of being correct on their assumptions. I would like to challenge that to ask if they have a 97% rate based on any planning they've done around a pandemic. I would probably guess that they do not. None of us knows what tomorrow holds. I think we need more options, including the option of why don't we not do anything and look at what the best and worst case scenarios might be if we just leave things the same. The last thing I'd like to leave with is I really want to impress on the fact that the amount of anxiety and disruption this is causing, and this is just in the planning phases, is tremendous. So if the board members think if they have an idea of the amount of disruption and anxiety this is causing, I would ask that you take another look, because I don't think any of us understands that. The only reason I actually became so aware of this is that my children are anxious right now. Their friends are anxious. Their parents are anxious. So in closing, what I'd like to leave you with is the word TOD: timing, options, and disruption. I know you will remember that. Please reconsider the boundary lines. It is not the appropriate time. It is not the right thing to do to our children. It is not the right thing to do in this present time when we're still dealing with a pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I call this person again? No? Okay. Try it again. So is Ashvin Chandhak here? No. Okay, last chance. So we now move to our consent agenda and superintendent report, and we will start with our superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue, members of the Board of Education and Indian Prairie community. I would be remiss if I didn't say this is our first board meeting here in this office in more than, I think, 13, 18 months. My first one here, and so I'm very happy that we're able to be in this presence. I want to remind the community about a few things. One, though this school year, due to the Department of Agriculture providing free meals for all students, regardless of income, it's important that families continue to fill out the free and reduced meal forms, because the percentage of families that receive free and reduced meals plays an impact on the federal fund money our district receives. Our Title I money is directly tied to the number of students who receive free and reduced meals, as well as our federal stimulus money. Please take the time to complete the forms now, because it will impact us next year. Two, our boundary process is just that, a process. Though I know people review our concepts each week, everyone needs to remember that what is presented often changes the next time we meet. These concepts go through various iterations based upon the comments from the parents who are part of the committee. Let me restate that. They make up the whole committee, the parents do, who are on that. No proposal has been presented to the board and will not until after the community forums are held in early November. I ask parents to consider becoming members of your school's PTA. Each school's PTA plays a vital role in helping the school supports all students. Through enrichment activities, to supporting staff and staff luncheon, to providing needed materials for the schools, the PTAs are great resources for a school. As a principal, my relationship with the PTA president was a collaboration that lasted 3 years. The PTA paid for various cultural arts assemblies, provided reimbursement to the teachers on items they purchased, and helped to establish a cohesive community at the school. My job as principal was so much easier when I had an active PTA. Please consider your membership. May Watts has my membership already. We, like other school districts, continue to look for those who can serve as lunchroom supervisors or substitute teachers in our schools. Districts are having difficulty filling these positions. These positions are very important for the smooth running of a school. Anyone who's interested is asked to contact your child's school or our Human Resources Center. September 15th to October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month. It is a time across the nation when we celebrate the great contributions that more than 60 million Hispanic Americans have provided to our culture and society. There is a rich history of how Hispanic Americans have contributed to science, arts, literature, education, and our overall society. Our schools in Indian Prairie have a rich history of celebrating our diverse cultures, and I am positive that they are commemorating Hispanic Heritage Month over the next 30 days. We are examining volunteer testing for students that may be used to reduce the amount of time students are out for quarantine. Today I had a conversation with one company who can do the testing. Any testing will be voluntary. More will be shared as soon as we can. And now I'll return it to you, Ms. Donahue, at this time.
Thank you.
Madam President, I would like an opportunity to make a report that has been traditionally done by the superintendent.
Sure.
I would like to report the passing of Barb Booterer. She retired as the administrative assistant or secretary of Crone in 2003. After having worked in the district for 27 years, she also worked at Hill and Granger. I had the pleasure of growing up 6 doors down from her house for approximately 3 decades. I will miss her. She will be missed. Let's lift up her husband, Dave Booterer, and the family. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, next we move to our consent agenda items. Please identify yourself as you make your motion or second. I need a motion for the approval of consent agenda items D through F.
Mark Rising, I make a motion for consent agenda items D through F as presented.
Is there a second?
Susan Deming, second. Ms. Deming, second.
Any discussion? Jeannie, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Ms. Grover? Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, next is our discussion items. And the first topic is technology services update with Mr. Mack.
Good evening. Yes? Good evening, is this on?
Yep. You have to bring it closer.
Yeah. Normally I'm really loud, I don't really need a mic.
There, that's
There we
better.
go.
You are loud.
Yeah.
Good evening, thank you, Dr. Talley, board members. Excited to be here. This is Technology Services Update. I can remember, I think it was probably a month ago, Dr. Talley came and said we normally do this in September. This is new for me as it's only 2 months in, so I'm going to do my best to give a spotlight as to what technology's been up to and what we're looking to move forward to. The first slide here, which you can't read the names for their privacy. No, I'm kidding. It's is really just to show you the amount of people that we have in the department. It is a rather large department. There's 46 members, and the reason I put it up there more, when we talk about how many people are in the district and what we support with those 46 members, again, being one of the larger departments, each person, including myself, is essentially responsible for a school. When you think about 600 students and 70 staff members, responsible as the user of those support to make sure that everything is always running, not just the devices, but also the people. We make up 4 departments to us, 4 teams. We have a server team, data team, network team, and a support team. Together, they kind of keep everything running. Server team really kind of is the builders. They create everything that's out there. The data team is the one that works with all the what's called interoperability, trying to make this very simple. You know, all the systems talking and working together. Our network team is the main communication. They keep everything on and working. And our support team, the largest group of them all, are really the feet on the ground. They're the faces everybody sees, the helpful people out there that are there to support them in their building, over the phone, or however they need to gain their support. Some interesting facts. We have a lot of devices out there. This count, just like we did with the staff members, each person would be responsible for about 1,120 devices on top of supporting 700 users. Again, that'd be myself included. Some interesting statistics up there. The 15,000 simultaneous wireless clients, that's about what we have on a daily basis. 15,000 things on the network at a time, all accessing the internet and going every which way. When I was here 15 years ago, you might have been able to get 10 in a building on the wireless if you were lucky, and they couldn't be next to each other. You know, that's how far technology has gone to where really 15,000 doesn't even shock us, but it is a large number. I always want to point out the number of blocked websites on a daily basis. Please don't think that that's 94,000 searches for inappropriate stuff. That is also us blocking ads and things along the side of newspapers, that, news clippings or anything that someone might be looking at that's just not school appropriate. So it counts each one of those as a block. That's always a statistic. People go, wow, 94,000 blocked. It's not really what that is. The 135 servers are also a neat number to look at. Again, 15 years ago when I left, that might have been 135 different boxes in the big room down at the end of this hall. It was a room that was built for a lot of servers. It now has like 5. But there's 135 systems running in them as they've been able to increase their capability and all of that. So it really is staggering to think of the numbers. The really big number there is the Zoom number. I actually figured that out in years, all because I like the show Rent. I know it's 525,600 minutes. I kind of did that math and realized that is 1,235 years on Zoom. Luckily, that's not one person, but when we tally that all up for a year, that's a lot of time we spent last year in front of screens for kids. And again, we were able to do it, support it, and make sure it all worked. Some of the big accomplishments, and these are accomplishments really more before I came into the seat. This is really, paying homage to what happened over this past year, as even some of the speakers talked about that we're in a pandemic and what came up. Our support structure changed over the past year to where we no longer were right next to it. You couldn't walk up and touch the device. You couldn't go up and hold the hand of the user. We switched to really a call center approach, a remote support. It was picking up the phone. It was things that even the tech staff weren't used to, helping people in that way. During that time, we did 32,000 support requests. That's about a 15% increase than a normal year, but again, it's a 15% increase of a lot of different solutions and problems that they're not used to, and they don't have the ability to reach out and touch it and fix it. They're trying to walk a person through. Talk about learning patience and learning about what our users struggle with. It was actually a neat, I won't say it was neat, but it was a very interesting way for them to learn a little bit more on how to support users. We had over 800 home deliveries last year to both staff and students during the pandemic. If people couldn't get things or couldn't come and pick something up, they went out on buses or they went out in vehicles. 65 staff members, the rest of those were student deliveries. One other thing I am proud of, I know we heard a lot of bad things about the Synergy implementation. Again, I've been doing this type of a role for 14 years. I've done a few SIS integrations. Year one never goes well. Year one in a pandemic probably was really hard on a lot of people. But I see it as a great accomplishment, more to the resiliency of the entire district. The teachers rolled with it. They were able to learn the new ways of doing things. There might have been some headaches. There might have been some frustrations along the way, but we were able to take attendance every day. We were able to get the reports in on time. We were able to, again, a little bit of a resiliency, and everyone kind of got through it. All of our state reporting was done. Everything was on time. I'm hoping year two goes a lot better. That's one of our goals in there. I think it will. In all honesty, year twos always go a little bit better than assists, and probably came in at the right time. I'll get a little bit of that credit, but it was not. It's more of a year two thing. We're also not really deep into a pandemic either, so hopefully that goes well. As many of you know, last year I kind of started transitioning during January through May. With an agreement with my previous district, I took my time and spent 3 or 4 days a month here, really as kind of a fact-finding. I wasn't making decisions, wasn't doing any of that. Was really just trying to find out, listening to people. I went around, talked to building principals, talked to administrators. I really told them when I called them, whoever you want to put me in front of. I don't care if you bring parents, I don't care who you bring in. Let me hear what's going on. Let me hear what we can do for you as we go out planning. It really was a great learning time. I also had 2 other groups that I met with, the coordinators in the department, so I could get a little background knowledge of what was going on in the department. But also I met with a leadership group that Doug had suggested putting together with some principals, some people from CNI, to really kind of get an understanding. And I told them many times, I said, I don't know how much we're going to do during this group, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And I think that's what I did during the spring to really understand. I've been, again, this is my 11th year in the district, the 15-year gap in the middle. I really needed to figure out what happened during that 15-year gap. And that team was really, really instrumental in helping me understand some of the types of solutions that work, some of the things that we might want to change a little bit. But a real good process that I think I told Dr. Talley later, anytime anyone switches a job, wow, if you could transition in over a longer period of time instead of absorbing all of that in like a 7-day period, 33 buildings, principals, and everything, I was able to take it home and process it for 10 days before I saw the next building. And it really did, I think, help me lay out a little bit better of a plan. During those meetings, these were the things that came up. I shared these at our June meeting. We have key issues and key needs. And I think issues, I identify those as issues as those are things that we can quickly fix. They're little simple changes. They're not something that's really wrong. It might be more of a process. And then some big needs that came up that probably involved a little bit more deeper planning, and in some cases might be other departments needed to be involved. Of the issues, the customer service, to address those, I really sat down with the team and said, one of the things I heard was people want to be known, or people want to know that you're listening. They want to see us. They want to know that technology is supporting them. That's our role. It is a huge support role for the district. That is what our job is. Met with them all, set expectations, simple little changes. These will address the issue. They will address that belief that tech isn't there to help, that we are there to help. Another part of customer service is find the yes. I heard many times in the buildings, well, a lot of times it's just we don't do that or we can't do that. I kind of changed it, so we need to start trying to figure out how we can do it. It might take a little bit deeper of a dive, but those are the types of things that we can solve for people and really help people along the path of innovation and trying new things. If they keep hearing no, they're not going to want to keep looking. Improving response time is, of course, always something you want to do in customer service. Being able to have a turnaround time where they know, their average is under 24 hours. That's really good. That's something we want to get to. We looked at trust and empowerment. Again, myself being an educator and starting out as a teacher, I really think this trust and empowerment comes from times when I sat on that side of the table, probably arguing with the person in my chair of what I needed access to and them saying, no, you can't have that access. We need to trust teachers. We need to give them the powers that they need. It really does empower them, us trusting them so that they use the appropriate tools at the appropriate time and they're not turned off by different solutions. Again, it's simply said, give them what they need to be successful. Improving communications. Again, another simple thing. I'm doing building visits. Go around every other month. I have met every building almost on the second go around already. Again, it's just there. It's being able to listen. Monthly updates for staff. Those are something I'm sending out usually at the middle of each month with follow-up to if they want to dig in deeper. I've become I don't want the tech emails to become the Kohl's cash, it's always there. and everyone just starts to ignore it. It's got to be the email that they're like, oh, I can go a little bit further. And it's only got like one paragraph, but it might have links into something if they're curious or want to go a little bit deeper. Too much communication, it's a hard line to really find out what it is. Also, cross-departmental planning. That's something reaching across with the curriculum instruction, the other assistant superintendents, really looking at what they need and making sure that tech supports them so they're not off on their own. Sometimes it could be just sitting someone from the department with them for an introductory meeting with another vendor so that they are aware, so that they're not like, oh, we've got to wait and find out. Sometimes that prolongs a decision to not have somebody there. Doing that and making sure we're there at the front end is really key. A last thing up there is transparency. Again, came in and there's a board policy 4.60 requires all bidding for anything over $25,000. Technology statewide is exempt of that. I have in my practice in previous districts and everywhere I've been, I always use that to my benefit to actually lean on that policy because it helps vendors come more competitive to me. Vendors know that you don't need to take it to bid if you don't want to or get board approval. I will bring those things as a transparency so you're aware of where all the dollars are spent. It also, and it's not to be down at my level and to understand, but sometimes those follow-ups, asking some simple questions, what something might be for, might put you at ease to know where a dollar amount is going towards something. It doesn't always have to be a public approval, but I do think it really outlines how we're spending taxpayer dollars, and at the same time, it allows me to lean on vendors to say, everything I'm doing is competitive. Just because we've been working with you for 10 years doesn't mean you don't have to come at me with your best price. The needs, these were a little more evident, and again, some of these are, there's not a simple fix for a lot of these. They're going to take a little bit more planning, a little bit more time. Other departments are involved. Synergy Year 2, again, I mentioned that in June. We're doing more training. We just hired our new SIS trainer who has 8 years experience with Synergy, so that's going to help benefit. Another different is she'll be doing it in the buildings as well. Before, the person always kind of sat here and supported from afar. I'm again, building relationships. Let's go out there and meet people, help them where they need it. We'll evaluate and survey staff on what is still needed, working close with the C&I people so we get those updates on this is critical. Right now, we're working on such and such, and this little piece of synergy is not working. We jump on it real quick so that we can take that and they can continue to work forward. The one platform, right now we're talking about Google. This was something that came from that leadership group. Rod, we use Microsoft for this, we use Google for this, you make us use this program for that and this program for that. Is there something that's better? So really looking at this year how we can streamline technology services. Again, there's Canvas, there's Google Classroom, there's a lot of things. What we're really looking to do is take advantage of Google Workspace, which is the newer version of Google. Possibly looking to move all of our server and storage stuff to Google Outlook, or Google Drive out in the cloud. One is the cost savings, but also two, it allows us some security by being able to remove VPN where people don't need to. Everything's in the cloud, in the Google Cloud, but also opening up tools within Google. We're using Zoom as one way to communicate. Google has Meets. Very similar. Some people, unless you knew what was around the outside, wouldn't even know they're two different products. So trying to get everything into where one thing can be done. And that doesn't just mean for Google. In this year's goal, it is really a Google platform, but really looking down the line at what those other opportunities to shore things up and put them into one solution work. The instructional needs, this was heard at a lot of the buildings as well. And I say identify the staples in all the classrooms. That's really an instructional what's needed in every room. There's projectors in rooms, some have better sound, some have document cameras, some don't. In some cases, PTA has paid for them, IPEF have paid for them, the district has paid for them, the principal has paid for them. Really trying to streamline that whole approach and put it into a budgetary block in partnership with what we're doing with curriculum instruction by looking at what a classroom of the future is and making these where they're not one-time dollars spent and then we'll worry about the refresh of it later. I think Mr. Krubis said at the last meeting, same thing with like the buildings being outlaid and you know, we've put things off. We currently have about 700 projectors that we're replacing bulbs so quickly because the projector itself is over 10 years old. It can't hold a charge. It's not bright enough to stay active. These aren't immediate fixes. I'm trying to build it into a current budget so that we can slowly take care of these types of things, but also find out what those other staples are. Technology is always changing. Whatever the staple is this year is going to move, so we have to be fluid in that, but finding budgetary dollars that I can always set aside and say, this is what this is for. That way when a school knows, right now, if their document camera goes out, they're like, I'm probably out until someone can get me another one or I win a grant or something. I don't want that to happen. We need to be able to say, you're always going to have these things and they're refreshed the next day. So working out that plan is going to be a long-term plan this year. And then our last one, the copy print refresh. This was, trust me, it's not something anybody in my position ever walks into wanting to do. It's just that I walked in and the copiers are 8 years old and Matt said they're going, so you want to take care of them? And I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to do this. I do have experience in this, but this was kind of one of those, this was the one goal I probably didn't want on there, but we're going to do a copy print refresh and that's coming to the board next week in the next renewal. But it really is looking at, we currently have over 1,000 print devices out there, really reducing that number, getting some energy savings, a little bit more efficiency with printing to a cloud and being able to pull the device down, more options for copying, more options for color printing at a cheaper value by putting in a little bit better devices. Might be a little bit more walking, so we'll add it into the nurses program and say it's a health benefit too. It's, there's ways to win this. Again, trying to reduce that amount of devices that we have out there and we always think we need to refresh. Just that kind of die on the vine as they go this year. Let's let them keep going and we'll dwindle those numbers down. So how will we get there? And these are key parts. I do have weekly coordinator meetings. Again, I'm walking in, my coordinators together probably have between 60 and 70 years experience in this district. They have a history with it, and some of these things make a little changes, so making sure that we're always on that same page and giving people the same information. My monthly technology updates is another way to keep everybody on. Nothing's a shock. No teacher's going to be like, we're using Google Meets now. It'll be 10 times before we actually get rid of Zoom that they'll have heard it. They'll have plenty of time to play with it. A steering committee that is now that initial leadership group that I met with in the spring. We've expanded it with more people from each level. We'll be meeting 4 times this year, really planning the down the line look. Not what are we doing next month, but really what kinds of things do we have to put in place so that Indian Prairie is not behind the 8 ball when it comes to any tech changes. We want to be able to say when a teacher comes in and says, we have this new innovation thing, we want to do it. Can we do it? And we never have to guess. Yeah, you can. You're fine. Go right ahead. That type of steering committee. Working with other departments across here, working with other departments in the buildings. Again, visiting school, listening, and working together. I mean, those are the 2 simplest things. Yet sometimes, especially after a pandemic, we really kind of siloed ourselves. Everybody kind of did. They went into their comfort zones and all worked on their issues. Bringing that back and really trying to, jump across the line and help each other out. So I left this one a little blank first just to talk about. I have, as again, it's my first year. I want everyone to understand, well, you never want to get in here, but how I think and how I plan. I have 4 areas when I come to technology planning that I've done for years. I think all things in tech fit into one of these 4 areas. I've done these before where you can get to building the maintenance cycles, and it's wear out, and this needs to be done in 4 years and 5 years. Tech is different. It changes every few years. So I address it in the 4 categories and look at each one of those categories each year as to what is critical that needs to happen now and what needs to happen next year. There used to be a report that was called the Horizon Report. Sadly, it disappeared a few years ago, the company that did it. Someone new picked it up. It kind of has more of a college feel to it now. It used to really be like, these are the 2 things that everyone in education and technology should be looking at in the next year or 2. Then there was 2 things that you should be looking at these in years 1 or 2 through 4, and then 4 years and beyond, these things that might be coming. A couple years ago, it was, virtual reality. In 5 years, it'll probably say time travel. I mean, you don't know what those were, but they really were things that made you look at and go, wow, are we thinking about this? Are we thinking about AI? Are we thinking about augmented reality? What things are we looking at, and are we prepared to do it? I kind of took that and said, these are the 4 areas that in tech, I've been doing, this is now 8 years I've used a system like this. I've never found anything that falls off of this planning wheel. It also helps me eliminate the shiny balls, the squirrel things that everyone goes, this is great, let's bring this one in. If it doesn't fit into one of these, we really have to say it's not fitting in with the district goal, probably not going to make it. So those 4 areas right now are network access. That's really how everything's connected, how everything stays connected. That's probably the easiest way to say it. Classroom and instructional areas, that's what teachers and students need, the devices, the opportunities, the things they need. Operational systems and planning, that's that software and those solution areas. Think of the copy, print, those types of areas. And then we have our safety, security, and data privacy. Everything that we do can fit into one of those areas. It's just, is it a short term, is it a long term, or is it in every year we're always looking at that, and it just becomes one of those refresh cycles. So in our current one, right now, the current plans that we're looking at when we look at network infrastructure, we do have our network switch replacement. This was approved in the springtime, if you remember, using E-rate dollars. Again, E-rate is part of that government funding where we'll get 40% back. E-rate is used to help purchase telecom, anything with communications and internet access. So you talk about wireless, you talk about network switches, anything that gets us connected to the outside world, we can get a rebate if we plan when we're going to purchase it and get the approval through E-rate. Those switches we are still waiting on. We are supposed to get about 60% of them here in the into October, in the first week in November, to where the network team will then start rolling out into the buildings and switching those out. The last shipment is supposed to be in early January, which timing-wise that will probably work out because it does take a while. We have to take the buildings down when we do this, so this is after-hours work and weekend work. rolling out building to building. Another current plan is the T-Mobile project, that 10 million plan. We have currently the 1 million project, I think you might all be aware of. And I think in June, someone asked me about it, and I said we didn't want to go with a plan that was had a cap on it. The 1 million project has a cap. It has that 10 gig cap at the end of the day, which again, kid bored on a weekend, he's hitting 10 gig by noon, you know, watching Netflix. So it's the 10 million project. We are using ECF funding. That is another string of E-rate funding that is available for this year only. It's emergency connectivity fund. Government set aside $7.1 billion for that. We were approved for up to 500 devices. We currently have about 300 consecutive users on the 1 million plan. The hotspots showed up about a week ago. We're going to start switching those out with those users in the buildings. And then there'll be a number available if there are still families who do need access to get the 10 million plan. Again, it's the same as the 1 million. It's just unlimited, meaning there's no monthly cap. They're not going to run out of their data limit, 4 days in at home, no matter what they're doing. And then the other thing we're looking at right now is outdoor wireless. That is mainly for the athletic areas at the buildings. Myself and Kent walked the buildings a week ago with the athletic directors. We're getting some vendors out there to get into this next E-rate cycle. This isn't an immediate, but we're doing the planning now. This is a mesh wireless like it is in this building. It's just outside. It allows the PE teachers to take their devices out there. It's not for saturation. This is not so the kids can play softball on their phones out at the softball field. It's not meant to cover the football stadium like if you're going to an NFL game and everyone's getting wireless. This is for the people the staff members who have those devices so that they can run athletics and things out there. This became kind of a topic at the springtime when I was kind of interiming in when we were planning for graduation and didn't have the streaming capability. We brought in those point-to-point streaming capabilities. Those will still be there, and those will be the stream for if they're streaming football games. The outside wireless we're doing is more of a coverage for the staff members to have their devices, whether it be an iPad mini out there, whatever they're doing PE-wise, but it's really more for the during class implementation. Again, leaning on E-rate, we can get 40% of that cost covered with a rebate into the next year. So we'll be putting that in this winter's E-rate recycle or E-rate refresh. Some future things we're looking at is increased internet redundancy. Right now we have a 10 gig internet pipe with a 1 gig backup. So if 10 gig goes down, everyone's going out on a 1. We're going to try to do some more replication, working with the vendors to see if we can't get a couple more, maybe at each of the high schools, a 5 gig line. It also helps us if we're ever attacked via DDoS, which is usually an internal. It's one of the kids playing around with it, but they stop the internet. We can switch everybody to others without anyone even knowing. It's more of a backup. Again, the ability to use E-rate dollars for internet is a benefit to us because it does save us on cost. And the amount that we pay for internet now, every year, it is the only cost that goes down for some reason. Everything else in the world goes up and up, but internet, what you used to pay now, in a year will get us 100 gig internet. It's astronomical how much it's dropped. I can remember 10 years ago going from 60 meg to 70 meg. I paid like $3,000 a month to go 10 extra meg. We don't even pay $3,000 a month now for 10 gig. It's, it really is amazing. So I think it's becoming such a norm that the cost just continues to be driven down. We're going to look at the existing wireless evaluation. Again, that's in the buildings. Again, it's something we need to do every 3 years probably. Again, always wanting to do this ahead of an E-rate just in case something needs to happen. Those type of systems, that system and the phone, probably will never happen as a refresh all at once. The district's too large, but looking at maybe a high school at a time, or high schools and then the middle or levels. And then we're also looking at an emergency radio plan. And the real reason I put that in there is right now the emergency radio plan is we're fixing things as they break. It's very similar to the classroom devices. Emergency radios are very important, and it's like we wait till they die. We don't really have a refresh cycle with them. So we never really have a budgetary amount. It's really going to be sitting down, making sure that they're the newest type of radios and that we have them in the appropriate places. Please don't make me think that there's nothing wrong with it. They're all working. They all have the ones they want. It's just we have never gotten ahead of it to say this is part of an ongoing refresh that we just need to stay ahead of. The classroom infrastructure areas, Again, this is the devices and the things that people need. We had that 500 smart boards. We're looking anywhere between November all the way up through February for those deliveries. Again, those were capital dollars that Matt had set aside. We had our elementary refresh. All Chromebooks came in. We are still waiting for 2 buildings and early childhood for their laptops. We're waiting for 300 HPs. They are actually still being held up because they do not have a wireless card in them. We actually know why they are. Once that wireless card is available, they will be putting it in. They have all their alternative wireless cards. We do not want the cheap ones because an update happens and they stop, so we are waiting for the actual ones that we ordered. Those teachers are fine. They still have their 3-year-old laptops, so they're in their 4th year. They're a little bit older, but on the dock, they all work fine. The future that we're looking at here, again, is really working on what that refresh cycle looks like for all other things, all other instructional needs in classrooms, flat panels, projectors, smart boards, and really working with the curriculum instruction team, those of us that went and saw the garage and the things that we talked about if you saw the boundary committee meeting where we talked about some of those inventive spaces, really making sure that these new classrooms are really future-ready equipped. Not with just wireless and a new screen, but what other technologies are out there that they might need. Everyone has a Chromebook. What else might need in a room? Do we also need iPads in rooms, just for the onesie-twosies where people need to go and do something where it's not, I've got to go all the way down the hall to the library and get one of the only 10 the school has. Really looking at what do students need and what do students want to have access to when they're learning. Our operational systems, this again is system software. This is where the SIS would have sat. Any type of software upgrades that we need. Again, we're looking at a copy print refresh. That'll be going on. Again, we have bringing something to the board here at the end of September for the very first phase of that. Taking that deeper dive into Google Workspace and really leaning on that cloud-based product that a lot of education institutions have. We're doing a Clever integration. Clever is how we manage all of our digital resources. We're at the beginning stages of that this year. The pandemic brought in a lot more digital resources. The team sitting over there will say that's probably one of our struggles right now is syncing up with the 60 or 70 different systems we have. In a perfect world, we would say we would buy every software for every student every time. It's easy to manage that way. It's not done that way. We have some programs that are only for certain grade levels, some that are only for certain courses or subjects. This Clever integration really handles that when they are dropped from a class, they have the appropriate software, all of that. That's something we're working on this year. Moving forward, looking at another refresh for copiers in phase 2, and then really putting in that software evaluation cycle is looking at each software and then working with the department specifically on if they think they're due. I think we've always been in it works, let's not fix it. I'm really going to start to, probably with all the departments, have a survey that goes out to all their people in their building or in their department in their building and say, are you still using this? Do you use it? Do you think it could be upgraded? Does it need to be? Does it do what you need it to do? Just so we can get it in that refresh cycle so it doesn't turn to, we've been using this program for 13 years and now we have to upgrade it and it's going to cost X amount. Really looking at it as an upgrade, is it a switch? Just putting those in a refresh and being the leader of that to throw it out to the other departments so it's not always, oh, we weren't even thinking that. They shouldn't be. That should be on us to say, look, the system needs to be upgraded. It can't run on this server. Really taking that forward approach. We're also looking at if there's storage solution needs. Again, that could possibly go to Google, so it's really just that evaluation of our current structure. The safety and security, and again, there were questions on this from Ms. Donahue about if I would go into, I will never go into too great a detail about what we do safety and security-wise. At these meetings, I can always share some of that, but part of coming in, the things I can share is one of the things, there's a 43-point security checklist that is called Reasonable Security Practices for Education. It really is something that every education institution should do. Education institutions are getting hit really hard right now with ransomware and phishing and all of that. These 43 points, here's where my previous district, I could have answered all 43 walking in. Here I don't know. So I've sat down with the coordinators, we've gone through the list multiple times. We've narrowed it down to 8 that we want to go into a deeper dive. Not that they're not there, please don't think that, but just to solidify what our refresh might look like, what a rebuild might look like if one of these things happens. It really has opened my eyes a little bit to maybe some of the long-term things we need to do. Really looking at what multi-factor authentication is. That's like what you use for your banking. It'd either be a text message saying when you're logged in. how we can implement that. We're starting at the tech side first. We're going to be using little chips so that people have to hit it with their finger. How can we extend that to the entire district eventually? A lot of districts in the area have gone that way. It's about maybe 50-50, maybe a little bit less than that. It is one of the number one barriers to anyone trying to get into the district and do wrong. Of all hacks, let's call them hacks, of school districts, 73% of those were caught by people who gave up their own credentials through a phishing attack. Even if someone gives up their credentials through a phishing attack with multi-factor, it's stopped, because then their phone's going to ring and say, oh yeah, that's not me logging in. Or they're going to get some notice, or it's their office phone that rings, or it's whatever we end up doing. So trying to figure out how we can get multi-factor in, working with the union, working with everybody in the district to really say it is a change, but one that really allows us to actually open other things up if we know we have multi-factor in place. SOPA, the Student Online Personal Protection Act, this is really, I would probably say, sits a lot with the curriculum instruction, but it is on there as part of the tech update as well. I don't even know how many programs, 120 something? It's around 120. We have 120 agreements with programs out there right now. We're using Learn platform, the CNI team. People request if there's a product that we do not have an agreement with. Again, SOPA is if a parent requests or wants data removed, it's very simple to get in touch now, and it follows the agreement we signed that says we want you to remove this person or remove all of their data, and it's wiped. It doesn't follow them anywhere. Tells us which data each company has. It really is a good thing. We're the only one of 9 states that actually has the data privacy agreement in place. There's a few more that are starting to be added. It's a lot of work on the front end for the CNI, but I really do think it puts us in a better place. It also really kind of points teachers to using these products. These products actually value student data. They're not going to abuse it. You have this one over here that might do the exact same thing, but they're not going to sign an agreement. Let's not use them. It really protects us. Some future things that we're looking at doing, we are looking at doing a penetration test. They're called pen tests. That's where we hire a company to come in and actually try to find our vulnerabilities. Again, for me coming in my first year, that's something almost anyone in a CTO position should be doing, because I don't know. I wasn't here to set it all up. Trust my people to know when, but at the same time, we don't know what we don't know. Having 4 teams, each of them part of a different thing, there could be a gap in between somewhere. We want to find that out. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing. A really nice thing about a really good pen test, it actually, if I don't tell my teams, they won't know we're being attacked. And I can actually see how do they respond. And we're getting this person's, and I've seen it already, because we have had a few people with, who've gotten ransomwares when they're at home, and I can see how they respond. But it really is, it's an eye-opener, and I know nothing's working, but one, you can see how well they handle stress. You can see, it really is a real live situation where they actually look like something's planted somewhere, and it's kind of fun to watch. If anybody wants, I'll take background video. No. Also, we're going to continue our cybersecurity training. Again, that's the phishing stuff for staff. Again, it's the number one thing we can do to prevent it in this district, is continue for training for everybody. I put secure versus block up there. That goes all the way back to the trust and empowerment. Trying to really look at a lot of things, and the reason I put this on safety and security is it's a block is the easiest security. If we're afraid of something, block it. I don't have to worry about anyone doing something wrong. The educator in me and the person that sat across from me 15 years ago, find the secure. Find what we can do. Multi-factor helps get us there. There's some things that we can put in place where we can allow a little bit more of some of the things that teachers told me they wanted to have access to, but we're behind. A lot of schools were leery to get anyone on YouTube. They always thought this was going to be the worst thing in the world. Has anyone heard anyone complain about YouTube? No, we haven't. It was, some districts went well ahead, some went other. We still have quite a few things that we have a block mentality for. And we've got to find a way to the yes and find a way to secure them, not block them from people, and know that our group is happy. My group is not fearful that this is going to blow up in their face. There is that, that fine mediation, but we can really do some long legwork to get to that happy medium. And then one thing that we are going to look on is a disaster recovery and business continuity plan. My guys have disaster recovery in the back of their heads. They said, oh, we would do this. They've played it out in their head. We haven't written it down anywhere if something were to happen. But it doesn't just involve us. A true business continuity plan involves everybody. Payday's Wednesday. We go down tonight, Matt, who's printing the report? Who's printing the checks? There's those types of things that I think we have to, as an organization, not as an, even in education, just as an organization, we need to have some of those kinds of things in line, and that involves me reaching out and working with the other departments to really say, if something were to happen, we know we can continue on. You know, we got through a pandemic, but how could we if someone cut the cable right now and no one had access to anything? So, and with that, questions. And I have a 3-2-1 rule. Can I do that one here, Dr. Tully? No.
Okay. How about Mr. Rising?
Okay. First of all, for being here 3 months, that was one of the best presentations I've ever had. And I say that because you outlined where we've been, where we are currently, and where we have to go. And I really appreciated that. And talked about some of the short-term stuff, some of the long-term stuff. You know, it was just really great. So, did I hear you say we're down to about 5 servers now?
5 physical boxes, yeah.
Oh, nice.
135
Okay.
sit inside 5 physical boxes.
But I'm assuming there's even more we can go cloud-wise to get at least to like SaaS with as much stuff as possible, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Oh, the other thing, did I hear you say we're trying to get away from Zoom a little bit and more towards Google Meets?
We are. We still have Zoom this whole year. Don't let that one get
Right.
out there, because that's the one email I've got
Oh,
from
no, I
quite
know.
a few people.
Yeah.
We did turn on Google Meets for staff to use, and we pushed out some help for them if they have an immediate meeting. We're hearing good things from the high school teachers who've been using it, that it is easy. In my September update is coming a little bit more to ask people to start to do that, and telling them at the end of this year, Zoom for everyone will be gone, but we'll still use it for larger meetings and things. It still has some controls, but for what teachers might need to do if they ever have to go for a day of remote, Google Meets is built right into Google Classroom, where almost everyone's using Google Classroom. You don't have to create the links. People don't need to go find things. It's just there. It really is, and I said that, and everyone kind of went, yeah, right, and then, like, no, you're right, it's just there.
So
It's-
from a security standpoint, though, because, you know, all
more
the
secure.
Zoom bomb, is it? Okay, so,
Yeah.
and we can provision that, or?
Ever heard of a Meets bomb?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it actually only allows the people in the class in the link. So and they have to be logged into our district through the SSO. Again, multi-factor helps
Yep.
us.
Yep.
You can't make up names. You can turn off the phone access. There's a lot more controls to it.
Okay, all right, that's all I had.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, how about Miss Jane?
I want to echo what Member Rising just stated, that for me, this was just a really wonderful overview of looking at our district from a tech perspective and a deep dive into what you all deal with on a daily basis. And I really appreciate you sharing your philosophy about technology and how it relates to education, because I think that's often missed or not communicated, or at least maybe I wasn't able to hear that. And I appreciated that context as you explained your short-term and long-term goals, as well as your ability to look at the issues, you know, from a micro and a macro perspective. So just the whole thing really helped me understand what you deal with and what you're thinking about for the future. So I'm really excited for our students and our teachers, and I'm thrilled with what the team has done in the past to get us to where we are today. And I'm very excited with your leadership and where technology is going to take us in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Dumming?
Thank you. Thank you so much. The thing that I appreciate so much is the opportunity to listen and visit with our schools. Echoing what Board Member Jean said, it's so important for us not to be siloed and doing what we think they need, but really talking with our staff, our teachers, seeing what our students are doing, how they're trying to operate and work to do what they need to do from an educational perspective. So thank you so much for that. The biggest thing that I think, other than understanding directly what our needs are from a education standpoint, is just really that safety, security, which everybody is so concerned about. And as far as I see where you're, you know, what the plans are, and especially that multi-factor authentication. But do you think where do we stand as far as any potential, I mean, I'm certain it can be difficult to say,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
what?
well, no, I mean, I think if you're infrastructure-wise and the things that we have in place, yeah, I'm very confident. I think where anyone in my seat is not confident is the wrong user out there answering a phishing email. That honestly, it comes down to more that training than anything else, which at the same time I know also frustrates people that they don't like to get those, but we started a new campaign. We're gonna try a different approach, not just send things and then tell people you messed up, you shouldn't have clicked. We're gonna try videos after we do it and explain the different types that we're sending out, just to show the people the different types. Luckily, they have, this was put in place before I got here, the send to spam. A lot of people do that. A lot of people send inappropriate things, not inappropriate in the term you're thinking inappropriate, the wrong things to spam, and it's like, no, that was actually a legitimate email. We've scared some people so much that they're sending too much stuff to spam, thinking that someone's trying to catch them. But yeah, I'm confident we have what we need in place. Again,
Okay.
it's that where what the penetration test will show us if there's anything that like maybe we haven't touched in 6 or 7 years. Those are the kinds of things that like a Rockford got hit with. Something that been sitting in some maintenance room for some years that, you know, controlled one door for a long time and sat dormant for 10 years, but it was still plugged in and on the internet and they were able to get into it. You know, those penetration test things like that will end up helping find some of those types of things, but I'm very confident in where we're at. Again, it's more the users and making sure that we can train is where I think anyone in my seat would always be. You don't know. You just don't know. Multi-factor helps us because if they do make a mistake and they click on something, the multi-factor stops the next person from getting access to anything.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Fosdick.
Okay. The first thing I just want to clarify to make sure I understood is on slide 9 under instructional needs. You said identify staples all classrooms need, workout budgetary plan. I understood that to mean, you know, hopefully just having a staples budget where it could apply
I
to
mean, we can
many
buy them
different
at Staples,
things.
but no, I mean, no,
Right.
like what every classroom needs, like,
Yeah.
you know, a projector, a smart board. But again, we're working on a committee to really identify what that is.
Right.
And then it'll be our job in the tech world to say, we can put X amount in, and maybe we don't replace them all right away. Again, I know there's 700 projectors right now that I, in a previous district, would have said they would have been gone 3 years ago. We refresh them as they die. So instead of replacing a bulb, we replace a projector. But
Right.
what's the next staples, the things that every class needs? Projection, sound, capture device, a camera, what is it that everything needs? And then making sure that those instructional staples, that when a teacher walks in, they know that what they need is there. They're not like, oh, I can't teach in this space. And that's more at the middle and the high school where they go in from room to room and not everything's always the same, but,
And consistent budgeting. As
right,
far as
yes.
that's
If
concerned.
you put the right amount aside, and eventually, it takes a few years to get there, but it will eventually play itself out to where you're not stockpiling and saying, we didn't do this for a few years, now we need 600 grand to get us to where we need to be. I put some away each time, and we eventually get everybody to where they need to be.
I was imagining when you said to the document viewer, saying if that died, a budget, a school, a building then would have the budget to say, oh yes, we can replace that now. We
Right.
don't need to wait until we have another refresh here.
Right, in a perfect world, I would have 2 sitting in every building that literally is not being touched, and that's the first one that goes until the tech can get out there and take the broken one, but the library director, the principal, anyone who knows who can help would just say, here's your new one.
Okay,
Again, that, it turns that turnaround time, those are things we can plan for
right.
with a person on site. Right now, if I put one in a building, the person who doesn't have one's gonna go and grab it. You see what I mean? We've gotta get
Yes.
to the point where everyone has something,
Yes.
and then we can, I don't wanna say stockpile, but you leave a handful for that immediate need.
Thank you for that. Thank you for all of this planning and thoughtfulness. There are 2 things you said right at the beginning that really stuck with me, and I think, although, you know, may be related to tech in your area, I'm gonna keep with me. First, that people wanna believe we're listening. I think that applies to everything we do here. It was a great reminder for me. And find the yes. I really love that, and I think as somebody who is not gifted in the technological department, I love the idea that our tech staff and you are there to help people understand how to do it, to be there to listen, and to help, you know, our teachers and our staff be more creative and access resources that maybe they don't have right now and have that opportunity or have that option. So thank you for putting that out there.
Thank you.
Ms. Grover.
Like everyone said, thank you for the detailed presentation. I was looking at slide 9, and I'm not sure if this is a technology question, but I was thinking of one platform, instructional needs, and I know a lot of teachers use Google Classroom. And I was thinking, like, if I'm a student in a middle school or a high school, and I'm learning the same subject as another student at another middle school and high school, can I, as a student, read the notes from a teacher in a different middle school and high school on the same subject? Is it like the platform is one that way?
Yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, if we were all in Google, right now our settings don't allow that. Again, that's one of those that it's a little stricter on where our students are, but yes, eventually we would love to be able to say middle school student to middle school student. If you know, you're in geometry here and you're in geometry there, even though your teachers might be different, it might be different. Do you have anything on, you know, the CPCTC? That's the only thing I remember from geometry. You know, and the person could share their files over and you'd be able to see another teacher's notes. I mean, technically, yes, that's what that is. It lives where we can say that they can share within in-district and everything in one platform. Most everything right now is Google Classroom. We don't really have a second LMS other than the students who are in the ELO programs. They have, they're using Canvas, which is, again, that might be the platform that's Classroom later. I don't know that. I'm just saying, trying to get everyone to where it's not this teacher's using this teacher's using that, this teacher's,
Right.
more for simplicity. Again, I think the pandemic showed us a little bit that sense. You know, I was in a different district at the time, but when you're trying to help and a parent is putting a ticket in and you're talking to someone and they're like, I've never been in Moodle. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I haven't either in 10 years. I don't, you know, this teacher was using Moodle when everyone else is using Google Classroom. It's like
Right.
trying to get it so that, one, it helps my technicians who right now we're all, it was always about this. I'm trying to change that mindset of you're supporting users as well. You need to learn a little bit about, you know, your technical, where people click, where things are. It's a little bit easier to show them one system. Just last month, our data team for the first time did a SIS overview, gave them a training in synergy so that if they're in there and a secretary who's stressed about something, again, they can at least go and they're familiar with the screens now. So it's trying to get everything on, I don't want to say one platform, that's what I call it, but for where students and where we want to meet students, yeah, we need to get them in one thing. We hear that a lot from parents. You hear that a lot from students. I'm going here to look at my grade. I'm going here to look at my assignment.
Right.
I'm going over there to look this
Right.
up. I'd like to do it in one spot.
Right.
I heard that loud and clear from that leadership group I met with over the spring.
Yeah.
And we kind of leaned toward Google, and we were half in Google, so going with Google Workspace, which is now the paid version of Google, opens up a lot more. It's now starting that training. And a lot of that's working with the curriculum instruction group as well.
Right, and that was a lot of things I would hear from parents as well. They would have to go to different, that's why I like the one platform, Google, and then you can interconnect it with the different schools. So, thank you.
Mr. Karubas.
We've changed a lot since high school, you and I.
We're going that far back?
But listening to you has always been like listening to a podcast at 2 times speed. I think they're gonna have to play back the YouTube at like half speed so the community can understand it all. Breaking down, I want to touch on breaking down the silos. We heard potentially about doing a facility assessment to determine the average needs we need to spend per year to maintain our buildings. That assessment should include a technology assessment, because technology kind of bridges the gap between the hardware and the software part of it, between, you know, the servers you need and the instruction being done. So we need, and that will, the facility assessment side talks about our finances are such that the spending is reactive, and we have priorities for safety, needs, and cosmetic. And so we need to integrate that so that the facilities and technology are talking the same language, so that we have, this is what we need for a safety in the technology space. So I'd like to see when we're, if we get to a place where we're doing a facilities assessment, it includes a technology so that we have an idea on what our average yearly spend needs to be. And so I think we're talking more of intelligently about how to budget on a yearly basis for this. I think it will help everybody, and hopefully doing so will get us to more of the proactive spend that needs to be in here. People don't, complain about the roof until it starts leaking. They don't complain about data privacy until there's a breach, but we don't have the luxury of doing that. So we need to make sure that we're spending that and making it a priority and doing it on a yearly basis. So thanks.
There was recently a school district that got a ransomware threat. They had to pay for over $500,000 that they held. I don't know if you saw that, but it was pretty some scary stuff.
Yeah, we get at our monthly IETL groups, or every 2 months usually. They will, when they're allowed to, they share with us all of the detail, which we always kind of leave and check really quickly within our own departments to make sure that that stuff is. The last 3 that I'm aware of were all because this district used VPN, allowed people from home to connect, and they got hit with something at home. That's again why we'd like to move to a Google where it's not a VPN. We never used VPN until the pandemic turned on. We were forced to use it then, that we didn't have another opportunity. So those are the types of things. But again, it's a close knit people who do share, because we don't want it to happen to the next person. So it is good.
So, welcome to the district for your 3 months and your first report. It's always hard for someone to change positions. It's also hard for the receiving organization, because change is just difficult for everyone. But it also does give you the great opportunity of scanning and seeing what is going on here and helping us make sure that we are having an appropriate budget, that we're making sure that we're refreshing appropriately and innovating where we need to innovate. I really like the 43-point audit you talked about. That was a good new thing that I haven't heard about before. Also, having my procurement background, I am appreciative of the visibility on the bidding process and what that does do to vendors when you show they're going to be in a competitive bid in every case. So I know personally I've had some need to call into the help desk recently, and I have to say I truly appreciate the responsiveness, and I had kind of a goofy problem that they were very active in helping me fix, and it could be because of my position, but I want to believe that that's how you are with everyone.
We treat everybody like that, yeah.
So I take it as a personal viewpoint, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next topic is high school ELA resources and middle school social studies resources, presented by Doug Acarius, Mike Purcell, and Tara Fowler.
How come Rod only is one guy? You guys got like 3 guys.
Well, it'll be mostly these 2. But, good evening, Dr. Talley, Board of Education members. Thank you for your time this evening. With me this evening is Mike Purcell, who is our Director of High School Core Curriculum, and Tara Fowler, who is our Director of Middle School Core Curriculum. This evening, we're bringing some resources to your attention, so you're aware of them, the community is aware of them, and then we would seek approval at the next board meeting. At the high school level, we have several novels that have really been used as kind of supplemental resources and are really moving into more of a primary resource role, and that means that they're going to help us really get to those standards that we're trying to attain for all students. At the middle school level, we're looking at a text that can help support our social science standards at the middle school level. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike Purcell.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Board of Education, Dr. Talley. My role here is to be a voice for the teachers and the department chairs at the 3 high schools who have really looked at some resources. We continue to always look at what are the best resources we can put in front of students in order to meet our goals, both curricularly and social emotionally. That we've really been looking at different novels over the past few years. I've had a chance to come and talk to you about more textbook things over the past couple of years, but this has been some work that's been happening in the background. And as Doug said, books that we have kind of tested in each of our buildings in different ways, and gotten really positive feedback from both students and teachers before we considered bringing them, and making sure that they align with the instructional outcomes that we were looking for. The three titles that we wanted to talk to you about tonight are Between the World and Me, The Hate You Give, and The Marrow Thieves. The Between the World and Me, my coach would be a junior English title. Very closely aligns to state standards both in ELA and Illinois Cultural Responsive Teaching Standards. Particularly what we like about this book is its alignment to the things around rhetorical analysis and nonfiction text analysis. We've been using a book, The Things They Carried, to do the same, what we will do kind of in the future, to look at kind of partnering those together. The Things They Carried really does nicely break up into vignettes, and we can take pieces of that and use that as a kind of a push and pull. How do these kind of go together, and how do they not, right? And give different perspectives from different times. The second title, The Hate You Give, would be with our sophomore. That has been a very popular title, both in our in things that we've done in our pilots, but particularly in a different model that we use, which is we give students choice novels. We'll say, here, pick from these 5 or 6 different things. Students, you have complete choice, and that is definitely one that is a popular one for our students to choose, and also one that we have a tough time keeping inside of our LMCs. It's one the kids pick to read on their own a lot. So this very much ties to those skills, those ELA, Common Core, Illinois State Standard skills of drawing inferences, identifying central theme, and a comparative analysis. Really looking at different points of view around the same situation, right? And then the third title, called The Marrow Thieves, is a junior English title, one that we have piloted again. Really does get at a couple different pieces. One, this is a dystopian novel that is really kind of fascinating, and really kind of a lot of what they've looked at is the author's choice, identify central theme. What they really want to do is to get into the narrative pieces of this and really use this as a springboard in that junior English class to kind of identifying some themes that may work in a student's senior essay, right, and those college applications. So really using this book as a springboard for that work. So we're really excited, and this is a lot of work that comes to you, and it looks like just one slide here in front of you, but this is years of work of our teachers really kind of working on what is good for our kids, and we're very excited to be here in front of you tonight to share these titles with you and ask for you at the next meeting to consider these as to be part of our core curriculum. The last piece before I turn it over to Tara, I always stop short here. It's just some of the details about the titles and where we get those from and when they were published. Obviously, one of the things that we're really excited about, that these are newer titles, that they're a little bit more of today, right? And that really does appeal to our kids, and we want to make sure that we kind of keep turning the field over in really appropriate ways, and that there's you could do this too fast too. If everything you're reading is from the 1910s, right, 2010s, I apologize, then you're probably missing that piece of history, right? We got to bring in little pieces at a time to keep turning over that field. So really these are 3 books that we really are excited to bring and put in front of our kids to round out the canon of things that they read during their time at Indian Prairie.
Good evening. So I have one text that I'm bringing to you this evening. Like Mike mentioned, I also work with the curriculum team, and I couldn't believe it, but they volunteered to work over the summer. As you know, this is our 3rd year of implementation of the middle school social studies curriculum. And we knew that, part of a curriculum writing process is that you're constantly coming back and evaluating and revising and looking to see what you could do better. So that is what we did this summer. And they have recommended, we actually got samples of the National Geographic Global Issues text, I don't even know, a couple of years ago. And with the pandemic kind of thwarted our opportunities to really take a deep dive. So this summer, the team got to look at it to see, it's a series of text. There are a lot of different issues that are covered in the text, but they are recommending the human rights text to support our Unit 2 in social studies. It would be an anchor text that we would use. Similar to what National Geographic puts out, they tend to curate different sources. So it's a compilation of like nonfiction articles. There are some case studies, and it's really looking at human rights from a global perspective, helping kids understand what do human rights look like in other countries, and then of course that lens of, well, what does that mean for me in my country? And so some of the skills is of course looking at nonfiction text. We always are wanting our kids to gather information from multiple sources, be able to analyze the text, and then of course reflect and research, which is really supported in this text. And then, as I mentioned, there are case studies from around the world that students can examine to get an idea of what does human rights look like. And then, of course, this text and the units are aligned to the Illinois social science standards. And then, similar to what Mike did, I just did a breakdown of cost, just so that I'm very conservative when it comes to cost. I think everything is a lot of money. And so what we're asking for is keep in mind that in middle school, almost every core teacher teaches social studies. So we're looking for every teacher to have the teacher's guide that would accompany this text. And my conservative nature, I'm asking for, we felt the classroom sets of the student text would be sufficient. Every student doesn't need their own text. They can use them in the classroom. So you can see what the total cost is. And the good news is we really have not spent very much money on social studies, middle school social studies. I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely less than $50,000 for new curriculum adoption. So this is one of the first things that we're asking to purchase. We've curated a lot of stuff from databases that we already have in the district, like Newsella. As Mike mentioned, we're asking you to consider this for approval at the next board meeting on September 27th. And at this time, we're happy to take questions if anyone has questions.
Ms. Grover?
I guess my only question is, how do you determine how many books you need?
Really just based on enrollment. So one of the things that we want to make sure we guarantee is that there's a book available to all kids. Some kids, we do have book fairs at the schools and they choose to buy their own. But truth be told, we are, like Tara said, pretty conservative. She and I kind of pride ourselves on being kind of thrifty. So we do share them between schools. We'll kind of run them up and down the street because they don't always teach them at the same time too. So that is we use enrollment numbers to do that, and then do it very conservatively and do our best to kind of share between schools as well.
Thanks.
Ms. Deming?
Happy to see that we are looking at providing texts that students will get excited about and that are helping us to align with ELA, but also things that they're seeing other people read and hearing other people read, and that they're choosing to read themselves. So when you talked about making a decision on how many books, are we not, I thought, maybe I'm kind of dating myself, when my girls graduated in early, 2014, 2017, we had to purchase books. Are they not purchasing the text? English.
The record, you never had to purchase books.
Oh, okay.
But you were afforded the opportunity to do that, and many families choose to do that.
Okay. But we provide them?
Yeah, because
Great.
you can mark them up and you can, annotate inside of them and those kinds of things. But we do, obviously, we feel beholden to make sure that those are available to families, that they don't feel like that.
Perfect.
That they have to buy them. But we also do like making them available to families, and not having them have to run around town. So often we'll do that inside the school, is to make those available with the book fairs and things like that you probably see.
Perfect.
Yep.
On the middle school side, when's the last time that we've done a revamp of the social studies curriculum?
This is year 3 of implementation. So we wrote the curriculum from the ground up. I think I was here, 3 years ago?
Okay.
Or maybe less. I don't, all the years
Yeah.
are running together now, but this is absolutely year 3 of implementation.
Okay.
So we implemented for the first time the year before the pandemic, but it took us a very long time to write the curriculum. So it's fairly new.
So, is this text, is it a new text, or has it been implemented already? Have we?
We have not used this one. This is a new one. The curriculum team has reviewed it, but we haven't made it, available to all teachers. We wanted the curriculum team to review it first, and they really felt like it supported the unit. One of the challenges that we have when you're curating is making sure that the text is at a readability level that's accessible to a lot of our students. And so that was the nice thing about the National Geographic text. They felt like for this unit, in comparison to some of the things that we found, better supported and gave that more global perspective of human rights, which is what we were looking for.
And the last question, just can you help me, the social studies, and how does that connection for some of that history, some of that, pretty linear history, how is that incorporated in this, on the social studies aspect?
So each of the courses covers a different part of history. So 6th grade is going to be more like your ancient civilizations or world history. And then 7th grade is geography, but really the way that the standards are written, it's more global studies, economics, that's what's in the standards. And then 8th grade is going to be the U.S. history, and then that's where we've also incorporated the mandated civics is woven into our curriculum.
Thanks for that reminder.
Oh,
I
you're
appreciate it, and just felt that others might not have remembered that as well. So thank you.
Mr. Karubas.
I'm going to reflect on board policy. The instructional material section talks about depicting in an accurate and unbiased way the cultural diversity and pluralistic nature of American society. I think that's important as we review and improve instructional material at the board level. Schools should be intentionally in the middle, not teaching left-leaning, not teaching right-leaning, diversity of thought. There's a lot of different phrases for it, but I think the board policy reflects accurately where we should be as a school board. It's easy to pick one book and one passage and say that it leans one way or the other, but I think the important part is to teach the diversity in an unbiased manner and make sure that it is pluralistic. And I believe this material does, and let's continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jane.
This may be a silly question, but what do you mean by anchor text?
So by anchor text, like a primary text that we might use for that particular unit.
Okay. Well, thank you. This seems very exciting, and I've had the pleasure of reading many of these texts, and so for it to come in mainstream is very exciting, and for it to be an anchor text is also very exciting. So thank you.
Mr. Rising. Ms. Fosdick.
I want to add first that, like Ms. Jane, I've been lucky to read some of these high school texts, and I really appreciate that many of them are reflective of personal experience outside of someone else's shoes. I think that's really valuable, and I appreciate that here. Are there any options ever for students to have ebooks, for us to purchase those as a district, and then, like the library does, where they can rent them? I know that the annotating isn't, my old school on paper, but I know students like to do a lot of things.
Yeah, so we do have some options for that. Typically, it's more based on need than preference, to be completely transparent.
Okay.
We do have some options for preference, but we really really it's a lot of this is about process and not product, right? So the process is the annotation, it's the discussion, it's the having that thing there in front of you. So there is some value to having the text, right? So while we have more available for pleasure reading through our LMCs, that we have some access to those for class novels, unless it's a real sort of need based on your individual education needs. We try to stick to having the physical copies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work in defining these choices. I did Google them before to just see what they're about and to see if that middle one was the movie that was very popular. Yeah. So I appreciate all the work that goes into these selections, and we will bring up the topic at the next board meeting for approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So our third item is our Indian Prairie Education Foundation update from Alicia Johnson. Hello, Alicia.
Thank you.
You have some forgive.
Sorry, I forgot the banner. I'll bring it tomorrow.
Oh, it's okay. Is this on? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Somebody has to be last, but aren't you glad I'm wearing bright yellow?
Yeah.
I told Lisa I only have about 30 to 50 slides, so we'll be fine. So, just for the record, I'm Alicia Johnson, the Executive Director of the Indian Prairie Educational Foundation, and it's so nice to be here tonight, right? For our first time in a long time. So, it's nice to see everyone that's left. And I just want to say, on behalf of our board, thank you so much, Dr. Talley, and to all of the board members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and to provide a little bit of an update in regards to our foundation and what's going on with the beginning of the new school year, 2021-22. So, for those who may be listening, who aren't familiar with the foundation, we are so proud to be in our 33rd year of partnership with the district. And I don't take that word lightly. It is a true partnership for which we are very appreciative. And during those 33 years, we have raised over $5 million for our district, for our students and our staff. Really with the primary goal, our main goal and mission, to enrich education by creating these programs to support our students, our staff, and not only that, but our families and our community. We are proud to bring and provide several different programs for the year and some new ones I'd like to share with you tonight. Of course, our traditional robotics program, our Fine Arts Festival. So we are looking forward to having that back again this year. Continuing the support of the fine arts in the district, our holiday concerts, our 3 holiday concerts at our high schools. Wonderful and very much looked forward to. Also, some might not be aware, we also provide funding and support for our Artist in Residence program and our Meet the Artist program at a couple of the high schools. And then our social and emotional program and support through Back on Track for our middle and high school students. Of course, also our support for our kiddos and our families that might just need a little extra help from time to time, our Kid Essentials program. So those families and students who might have some food insecurities or need just some extra help with something within their environment. We want to take care of all. We are very excited to provide a few career readiness programs this year. This is something new for us, so we're excited about that. 2 of them, one is Launchpad, and this is an introduction to really our younger students at an elementary level to just some career exploration, looking at their interests and matching it up to some potential careers in the future. And then at the high school level, our SMILE project, which we're excited about, which will provide an opportunity to some of our high school students to have real internships for a few weeks next summer, paid internships that are provided through a partnership with several different businesses around the community. So that's SMILE. And then Valley Runway, an opportunity to provide the same prom experience to all of our students if they so choose. Some of our students have a little bit harder time having having available different items and things, clothing that would be necessary to take part in the prom experience. So we feel like that's kind of a rite of passage of our high school students, and we want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity if they'd like to. And then another new program this year is our esports program. So we are very excited about that, to provide this opportunity to students as a club activity, to provide an opportunity to work on STEM skills, collaborative work, teamwork, also opportunities to participate in tournaments. And don't know if you've read any articles or literature, but esports definitely a career that many are taking in a lot of different forms and varieties. So we want to offer that opportunity to our students through that activity as well. So I don't need to tell you that we have amazing staff here in the district, and the foundation really likes to honor and to recognize our staff. Our Teacher Innovation Grants program launched today, and that runs through October 25th. And that is an opportunity for our educators to apply for an innovation grant to really extend that curriculum and education in the classroom in a very out-of-the-box, innovative way, if you will. So that's taking place right now. We are also offering our Gifts of Gratitude program that we launched last year, which was highly successful, and that will happen in November and May. And it's just a nice opportunity for anyone in the community, parents, students, to recognize staff members twice a year by making a small donation to, or a donation to, the foundation. Those honorees will then receive a specialized, customized certificate and a note of appreciation delivered to them twice a year. And then we are thankful to partner for our 8th year in a row with Wells Fargo Advisors, who will be sponsoring our A+ award program. So one of our favorites for sure. This will launch, we'll have our first award presentations on September the 28th, and we are looking forward to getting back into that surprise mode that we missed out on during remote learning. So watch for more information about that, and we encourage our alumni, our parents, our students to submit an essay, submit a nomination for really any staff member that you feel goes above and beyond. It could not only be a teacher or maybe a classroom aide, it could be a bus driver, it could be a crosswalk guard, it could be someone that helps out in the lunchroom. So submissions can be made through our website, ipef204.org, or through the district website. And we keep those nominations. We choose 3 a month. We will continue to have A+ award winner at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And even if someone doesn't win that month, the nominations roll from month to month. Another thing that we do is we share the nominations with each of the nominees on a monthly basis. So it's a nice, positive way for our staff members to know how much they are appreciated. We are in race season. Team IPEF has been traditionally the foundation's largest fundraiser of the year. We are in year 8 and we are excited. Race Day is coming up on October the 17th. We are one of the largest, if not the largest, charity team for the Healthy Driven Naperville Half Marathon and 5K. We are so proud to have 243 team members this year. Over half of those are staff members or staff families. So I think that speaks volumes about our staff. And I also want to give kudos because every one of you up there, including Dr. Talley, all of our board members, our Team IPF members this year. So thank you for that. We really appreciate your participation. And even our CTO over here, Mr. Rod Mack, is on our team this year. So we welcome him. He is one of our 65 first-year team members, so we welcome all of them. Like I said, this is our 8th year to have a team in the race. 2014, we started out with 31 runners, and over the 8 years, we are up over 2,000 runners and walkers that have participated in the race. We have 5 very special people that have joined us year after year after year for 8 years. You can see their names there. We just wanted to give a little shout out tonight to them. That is quite an accomplishment, training, participating, and all of these 5 runners actually participate in the half marathon, raising funds for Team IPF in our district. Jason Stipp, our principal over at Waubonsie. Christine is a teacher for Prairie Children Preschool. Parents, the Malartziks, they're running for Granger this year, and another parent, Joanne, over at Scullin. So we want to say thank you to them, and we appreciate your participation. Now, as a charity team, there are ways to get involved. One of our cross-country teams at Mattia is actually managing one of our aid stations. Our spirit squads are back, so that's another way people can get involved if they're not participating as a team member. Spirit squads are very instrumental. For those that you have participated, am I wrong? Spirit squads help a lot. They are placed at different points along the race course to provide enthusiasm and support and attaboy, and you can make it. You've only got one more mile or one more block. And we do make it really fun. There are monetary awards. We have a scoring system. So it's just a really fun way for the schools to come together and support their team members. Each of our team members, because we are a charity team, are required to raise a minimum of $150 by October the 1st. All funds raised, 50% of that goes directly back to each school. We have a goal, folks, of $70,000 this year. We are not quite halfway there. So I ask our community, go on to our Cherry Fish fundraising page. Information is there on the slides or through our website. Find your team members that are representing your school, and we would ask that you make a donation to them. Support them. Help us get to our goal of $70,000. If we reach our goal of $70,000, that means we will have raised over $1 million through Team IPEF alone. So we can use your help. Make your donations for your team members by the deadline of October the 1st. We have another exciting announcement to make tonight. The foundation is launching a new fundraiser this year. March the 11th, Inspire 22 will take place. We will be providing more information in November, and tickets will go on sale in January. But it will be an evening of food and beverages, our community coming together, lots of fun fundraising activities. But what's really special is throughout the evening, we will be featuring many of our amazingly talented artists and musician and vocalist students from within the district. So we will have an art gallery displaying several different pieces of their artwork, and performances will take place that night. So mark your calendars, March 11th, Inspire 22. More information about tickets will be coming out in early January. And in closing, we would encourage you to make your impact in the district. There's many things that you can do. Again, donate to a Team IPF member that's representing your school. Honor a staff member or a teacher through our gifts of gratitude. Join us at our Inspire 22 event. Submit an A+ nomination. Let that staff member know how special they are to you. Check out our website, ipef204.org, for more information, or feel free to reach out to me directly. So thank you all for your support. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to a great year.
I'll just open up to everyone for any comments and Questions?
You're awesome. That's all I have to say.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an amazing group of very hardworking individuals and trying to do wonderful things for the district. So greatly appreciate all the work there. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alicia, can you tell us how we can donate to Valley Runway?
Sure. You can contact me, or there is opportunity to donate through our website, and you can make a notation that that particular donation should be directed to Valley Runway. So, or a check can always be sent here to the district building. Just make a notation that it should be directed to Valley Runway, and we will make sure and apply it to that particular program.
Yeah, on the donate IPF page, there's a comment section, so they
Yeah.
can actually write that in there.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm impressed with the growth of Team IPEF. I recall being on the foundation 8 years ago when we made a decision whether to sponsor 12 seats, runners, or go for an unlimited amount. And I think that was a big decision where we have seen, we're almost hitting 1 million, and the number of team members is very large. So I'm glad that IPEF has kept with that and the community has supported it. So awesome work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay, next up is legislative advocacy and Board of Education update. I did attend the LEND 101 session and sent everybody a copy of the presentation. I recommend it if you want to get basic knowledge about how that organization works. And it was well worth the hour that was spent. And they will start up their meetings in a couple weeks, and it's a monthly meeting where they help support us with legislative info and positions on different pieces of legislation that are being proposed in the state. So, is there updates for Board of Education type items?
Just a friendly reminder to our district parents to fill out the communication survey. The deadline is Wednesday, and that information will be greatly useful as Lisa Berry and her team strategize on making our communications more effective within the district and within the community. So please fill that out. Thanks.
All right. So it's time to adjourn. I need a motion to
I
adjourn.
have a motion to reconvene.
Yeah, okay. Do we adjourn first and then reconvene?
No, I think we reconvene first.
We reconvene.
Okay. All right, we need a motion and a second to reconvene to executive session.
I motion to reconvene to executive session for the appointment. Should I read the whole thing?
No.
No? Doesn't she have to? Yeah.
I defer to the president.
Yes.
The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employee, specific individual who serves as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or education setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. Litigation when an action against affecting...
No.
Okay, we won't be discussing litigation, so I guess we're okay.
Okay. Need a second? Any discussion? Jeannie, please call the roll.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Rising? Mr. Krubis?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick?
Yes.
Okay, we are recessed to executive session.
I want to make it clear that we need to come back in here
Yeah.
to close our open meeting, but I think tech can break down.
Thank you.
We don't need to record it, and just leave the lights on for us.
Okay.